All right, episode 13 tonight. We got Major Smith, who is our officer representative for the Naval Academy wrestling team. What's going on?
Hey, Peyton, how you doing?
I'm awesome. Happy to finally have you on board the Navy Wrestling Club podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. I've loved watching your episodes, and it's been a cool journey. The guys are so busy right now. Focus on nationals. Last week with Ty talking about EIWAs, kind of seemed like a good time to kind of talk some Marine Corps stuff and some
Yeah,
OREP stuff.
actually, you're right. I mean, kind of obviously at the tail end of this long season, but it also is the beginning of the next chapter for a lot of our guys. I believe we got how many seniors this year? 9, 8,
7 officially, 8 total.
8. And then how many are going Marine Corps?
4.
4. So over 50% or about 50%. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had 2 years where I've had 50% of the firsties that desired to come to the Marine Corps, and they were a great fit. And I was happy to brief them. The rest of the panel on board and Senior Marine agreed, and we got a lot of good quality Marines coming out of the wrestling program.
Yeah. Well, obviously I'm biased, but yeah, every year. You are too, obviously too.
I am.
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with you a little bit, like just a brief, tell us about yourself, who's Major Smith, and really I wanted you to kind of talk about, because I don't know if I've explicitly asked you, like how did you get connected with the wrestling team? And the real reason why I'm so interested in that is because, I think being an officer representative is a very important role for our athletic teams here, but it is a role that you take very seriously, and the guys lean on you significantly when it comes to that mentorship, that leadership, professional development, and then really just like you're an extension of the staff, getting guys ready to perform on the weekends. So sorry, that was a whole lot of mouth.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That sets it up pretty well. So I'll start it with the beginning. When I got here at the academy, I of course know who Coach Colat is. I watched him when I was in high school. I thought that would be cool to be able to be a part of his team and all the guys. I've been watching Navy wrestling for years, and I talked with some of the Marines as I was checking in, and I was like, "Hey, how do you do this OREP thing?" I'm not an academy guy. I can tell you that story later, but I just knew that every team and club and all the other great things we have on the yard have officers involved. And I said, I'd love to be a part of something. What's available? How do we do it? And a good friend of mine, he OREP'd like 12 teams while he was here. He was, I don't know how he did. He had no free time. And so he and I had lunch, and I talked to him a little bit about my background, what I was interested in. And he's like, let me get you in touch with Lieutenant Commander Hartley, who I think he's the OREP for the wrestling team. And so I called Sam, and he and I had a great chat. We met, and he told me, he's like, nobody knows this yet, but I'm actually getting out of the Navy in like 3 months. And so there's a OREP spot about to open up. And I called Coach Colat. I called Captain Broadwater at the time, and I said I would love to be a part of this team and help out where I can and figure out how I can fit into the mix. And Colat and we hit it off right away. I love his drive. I love his background. I love what he's doing with our guys to develop them in so many different levels, in so many different dimensions. And so I said, let's do this. So Sam and I kind of did it in tandem for about a minute. And then Sam, rightfully, like we all have to do at some point, started shifting his focus to getting out of the Navy. And so I was able to just step right in my first semester, learning a whole new job, and jumped in with both feet first.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you do as an officer representative that kind of, boosts the program? And I can say this very confidently, and I know you do so much more than probably 99.9% of the other officer representatives. You know, what do you like from this billet or responsibility? What do you leverage to help boost our guys? You know, on and off the mat, because I know you're in the classroom also. You're doing stuff.
Yeah, so I find that, you know, my leadership style is a compassionate leadership style. I've developed that over the years, and I find that you get more out of those that you are in the influence and you are trusted to lead when you genuinely know who they are.
Yeah.
And so I spend a good amount of time getting to know our guys, and then I figure out what it is they actually need. Sometimes guys need a kick in the butt. Sometimes guys need a little, you know, pull to the side, like, hey, you're actually doing great. Like, don't be hard on yourself. Sometimes we have guys that are struggling in the classroom because the academics at the academy are top notch and require a lot. And so I figure out where I can fit best to help them succeed. That's reaching out to professors, that's reaching out to department chairs. I've been in long enough that I have no qualms just calling anybody and saying, hey, I've got a guy and he needs your support. And so I think, you know, supporting them, you know, the one thing I will never claim to do is to coach them to a championship. Like that's never going to be something I can put on my resume. But so much about, you know, guys like, you know, Josh and David that are, you know, successful, and not to alleviate anybody else, but as they get to that level, sometimes they just need somebody to call and explain something. You know, this week I called personally all of Peyton's professors, and I let them know, hey, he qualified for the championships in Philly. He's going to be gone on these days, and here's how we're going to support his academic mission. Here's how, you know, we need support from you. And I find that, you know, supporting that holistic mission is very important to helping them be successful, because I don't want them to just be national champions. Josh is going to be a national champion this year. Danny has an amazing chance to be an All-American, national champion. Peyton Thomas has all the ingredients of success. But besides all that, at some point, because of the path they've chosen, they're going to stop wrestling for a minute and they're going to focus on leading sailors and Marines around the world. And so I'm helping to kind of bolster, you know, some of that so they can be the best versions of themselves. There's a lot of like behind the scenes work that I do, you know, communicating around the yard. I've stood in front of a few battalion officers over the last couple of years to let them know, like, hey, that snapshot of so-and-so that, you know, you're looking at here and judging, that is not who this individual is. And then I am entrusted. In fact, there's been a couple of times where they've entrusted me to help them, you know, correct a small deficiency, get to what right looks like, and then move forward in a positive way. So, you know, a long-winded way of saying that there's just so many little things, and I try to be involved as much as I can to make every one of them as successful to reach the potential that they have.
Yeah, and it's a lot of stuff that's behind the scenes that like you don't necessarily even have to do. You do it because you want to and you genuinely care.
I love every one of these young men. I see, you know, I see myself in a lot of them, not because of wrestling that we share that background, but because they legitimately, and I'm jealous of all of them. All of them are at the start of a career that I'm like looking back like decades ago.
How wild is that?
And I'm like, you guys have no idea the opportunities that are in front of you. And so if I get to be one small, you know, snapshot, one small piece of helping them be successful, then it's my pleasure. It's my privilege.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps, because it's literally something that I think, you know, it's wild, like walking into those doors in Lejeune and realizing that it's been around a decade since I was one of them. And, you know, you're right. It's like these guys are just on the cusp of their careers and they've got so much to look forward to. And, you know, it's easy as an 18-year-old to kind of dismiss that, you know, when an old head comes up to you and it's like,
oh, you tell you what to do.
Yeah. It's so easy to just be like, all right, dude, shut up. Like, but I don't like our guys, especially, are super receptive, at least to. I mean, I've seen your interactions with people, and people come up to you. It's like it's not like you're going out there and chasing every conversation. People are coming to you for counsel, and I think when people are coming to you, that's when you know you're doing it right.
Yeah,
And
I try to, I love all of them in many different ways. And when they reach out, when they text, when they call and they say, hey, can you help me with this thing? Hey, what do you think about this thing? Then that's just one more opportunity to help mold them into the young men and the future leaders that they're going to be. And so I've never ignored a text. I've never ignored a call. I might have delayed one for a minute because I've had a few call me in like the middle of class, which is fine. But they're all sponges. I mean,
yeah.
all of them are literally soaking up everything around them. And so if I can put positivity, if I can put, some reality in there on occasion, and some, just helping them get to what it is they need, then we get to move on to a solution that, for whatever the problem or, question may be.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think segue too. I think, obviously you're very involved with the team. You're also very involved with the staff and faculty throughout the yard. On multiple occasions, you've shared stories with me about some of your colleagues, and I know you are friends with other officer representatives, and a lot of the other athletic teams. You visit athletic, programs, and you watch other sporting events throughout the yard. But why is wrestling different? And what is their reputation, and why is it so respected across the brigade?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I talk about wrestling, it's not at the detriment of the other sports that we have here on the yard, because we have so many amazing athletes doing, wonderful things. I've taught students in track and swim and cheer and basketball and football. I mean, there's just so many different, different paths that individuals take here. But what I see in wrestling, especially here at the academy, is one, the sport starts in August and ends in August. Like, it's a year-round commitment. And but when we talk about the championship season, we've got a little bit of preseason in block 3 for the blocker. But once classes start, I mean, they are preparing for March. And there's not another sport on the yard that starts in September, or really the end of August, and is planning on the end of their season being the third week in March. And so the longevity, the timeline that they have, the amount of hard work they have to commit to. We're one of the only, and not the only, but one of the only sports that have 2 academic semesters across the time period. And so, football can come in and they do a great job, and they focus on the academics that they can during the season. And then the spring, they get to kind of shift a little bit. But our guys are all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The weight management part, the getting their lungs right, getting the workout. So what I see, to answer the question, something that is different about the sport of wrestling is the amount of commitment it takes. And it's a drive. Each individual has to figure out, how hard am I going to push myself? How big, like Barry talks about, how big do I want my check to be in March based on what I've put in? What have I deposited that I'm going to cash in March? And the amount of dedication it takes to do that over such a long season, that's the type of mentality that I'm looking at from a military side when I step away from being an OREP, and I start thinking a little bit about the recruiting mission that we have here. Someone who can look at a goal that is 6, 7, 8 months away and never lose sight of that goal. And there's a few like speed bumps and hiccups along the way that they're going to get to, overcome, maybe be set back, like an injury or something like that, and never lose sight of the ultimate, beginning with the end in mind. I know Josh started this season with, I'm going to be on the top of the podium in Philadelphia in March. And everything after that led to that point. And so those are the type of individuals that if I can mold and mentor to get to that end state that I want in the Marine Corps, because they're going to be leading and molding and mentoring the future leaders of our Marine Corps.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a great answer. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously no sport like wrestling with the level of commitment for sure. And I'm curious too, though, however, if that's kind of recognized across not only the brigade of midshipmen, but also throughout the faculty, like from a professor slash civilian. I know the military representatives kind of see it and they understand it, but is that something that's mutually understood and respected from a faculty lens? I think there's always this divide between athletes and non-athletes, and balancing that, as you mentioned, is difficult across 2 semesters. And you obviously have so many interactions with the faculty of the guys on the team. But I'm just curious if I know you've hit some walls with faculty where it's like, hey, I need some help, and there's been some pushback, but for the most part, I guess it's.
We have an incredible faculty staff here at the Academy. They, first of all, they understand that everybody that comes through, whether you're a varsity athlete, a club member, an intramural athlete, not all of the in-betweens, that they truly are invested in the development of future leaders in the Navy and the Marine Corps. And I mean, I've never interacted with faculty where they said, I don't care. They may express the reasons why they have concerns, but they literally, I mean, the center point, for the center point for the Marine Corps is the infantryman on the ground. The center point at the Naval Academy is the midshipman in Bancroft looking at the ceiling and wondering, how am I going to get it all done? Right. And that's so perfect. I love all my interactions with them have led me to the understanding that the faculty and staff of the Naval Academy recognize the challenges of our wrestling team. One of the best example I can use is Captain Dave Richardson, one of the most phenomenal leaders that I have had the opportunity to serve with. He was best friends with Doug Zembeck, class of 95. He's a 95 grad, back as a PMP, retiring this year. And when I joined his department, he's my department chair until May when he retires. I said, I get an opportunity to go over with the wrestling team. He's like, you let me know what you need. I know those guys need you, and you like blank check. What do you need? Because I know the poli-sci majors that we have, Josh being one of them, Kale being another one, and a few others that. He's just like, I see the work ethic. I see how hard they're working, and I'm just all behind them for their success, holding them to a standard for academics, but like they recognize that the sport is a little bit different.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think the plebe year is, I don't remember it being the hardest, but in this year, I can definitely see why. Because you're not dealing with a major or department chairs, that kind of understand the demands of certain majors and stuff. When you're taking plebe classes, it's you're messing with different pots of people,
That's right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I think it's probably always been that way. But I always wanted to know your perspective from that, because I've never really interacted with or asked that question to any 04 across the yard. But I feel like it's definitely the same throughout the brigade. If I had Kale, next to you on the podcast right now and asked him the same question, was the, respect of the wrestling team or reputation, really, I think he would have a very similar answer when it came to the brigade. But yeah. So what, when we were talking earlier, when we were kind of chalking up like what we're going to talk about, I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about really like your uniqueness of being involved with the wrestling team and how you talked about that recruiting mission, and what's your involvement in not necessarily seeking out or just kind of like molding people into that Marine Corps mindset, when they turn the corner on that junior to senior year, like I'm putting in my preferences, like I'm going to Quantico.
Yeah. What we want to always avoid is having, in that last week of August, first week of September, is having any midshipman. That's any midshipman across the yard, choosing what their career is going to be based on like coin flips, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that there may be some history in the past of communities that were just like, well, we'll just let them figure it out, and the cards, fall where they lie. But Colonel Stiskel last year and Colonel Reed this year, we are focused, based on their guidance and leadership, to help midshipmen, not just Marine Select midshipmen, but midshipmen writ large, to make informed decisions. And so I tell everybody on the wrestling team, I support your path to be a SWO or a sub SWO or a nuke SWO or a Navy pilot or a Marine or NSW, EOD, all the different available jobs that they have here. As long as they reach the point where they're on mids at midnight on the last night and they're filling out their preferences, if they're doing so on purpose with educated decisions, informed decisions, then I'm happy with that. And so, when plebes get here, first of all, plebe summer is a blur. They're just, all the things. I was never a plebe, right? So all the plebes, they get here, they're running around, and all of a sudden, the day after plebe summer, they're in academics, and they're like, I didn't do the reading, right? Like on day one. It's like, yeah, I know you didn't. And it really is in that full plebe year, through the first plebe summer, we're doing a lot of informing. So, Stevie talked the other night about informing. That's letting them know, like, what's out there, like what's available. And through that first year, and that's why I love teaching plebes, is that I give them one example of a Marine officer, and they have lots of Navy officers and other all the varieties out there to show them, as a leader, as an academic. Some of these individuals, like, brains are so big and heavy and smart, all the different things. And so I spend the first year not only talking a little bit about the Marine Corps, but talking about some leadership and their future and their possibilities. And then all of a sudden they go off into their first their youngster year to do ProTremid and all of the things. So once they get back from that, then we're doing a little bit of influence, right? So over the next 2 years, it's more information. It's a continuing effort. Now we're starting to influence individuals that are, I'm 100% against this. I'm 100% against that. And it's like, okay, good. You've started to take things off the list because you got a big list. You got to start getting that down.
For sure.
I do that pretty intimately, kneecap to kneecap with a lot of the wrestlers. I do it with a company that I have the honor to mentor, 14th Company Cobras. And, we sit down probably about once a month. With the wrestlers, it's much more often, just because of our schedule and traveling and having opportunities for those interactions. But to help them understand, like, what's it like out there. And so ultimately by the 36-month mark, once they make their decisions, I tell them, I'm like, okay, you've made your decisions. It's locked in. I'm not going to talk to you about this at all for the next, ends up being about like 2 months. And then for 2 months, I brief my 14th Company Cobras. And then I also aid in the bolstering of the packages for the wrestlers that say, hey, I want to be a Marine. And what I do is, as an OREP for that side of things, is I add the other perspective. As one example, our adjutant, she has Dayton Davisio's company. She's the mentor. And she and I talked a little bit. Dayton's very reserved. He's very intelligent. He's going to make a great Marine officer. But sometimes that can come off as I don't want to, or I'm not excited. And really what it is that Dayton is a very calculated individual.
Yeah.
And because he and I had spent so much time together, I was able to add that, that extra piece of information. Like, Dave's a very calculated individual. He's extremely hardworking. He's a valuable member of a team. He's going to make a great fit in the Marine Corps. And so that's kind of the pieces that I kind of add to that equation.
Yeah, I just listening to you talk about that, I wish, I always talk about how Major Antonelli was a huge, or Jay was a huge influence on me. He was still in when I when I was going through the yard, but had someone like you who had those kneecap to kneecap type of conversations, I think may have been able to come to the Marine Corps conclusion a little bit easier and faster than it did. I didn't know what I wanted to do until I started filling out my preferences, really, which is what you just said, like not really what you want to do.
Yeah, not ideal.
Not ideal. Obviously it worked out. It wasn't an uncalculated decision. It was I explored all my options, but had I had somebody like you to kind of, or felt like I had somebody, obviously there's so many resources at the academy.
Yeah.
But you make yourself overly accessible, and you have the relationship with midshipmen, not only just the guys on the team, but I know your students feel comfortable coming to you and talking to you about this type of stuff, which is, that just got to feel good. So,
yeah, there's actually a big reason for that. That this makes sense to bring it up. So years ago, when I decided to put in my commissioning package, and I can talk a little bit about my path to got me here, but ultimately I had an amazing mentor. He was a colonel, recon Marine. And so I think he did 27 years. Scott Cottrell was his name. And he lives across the street from my in-laws. That's how I met him. And we got to talking about, some things. And he basically really encouraged me to put in my MESA package, the enlisted commissioning program that I did. And when I got selected for it, he and I kind of celebrated together. And he asked me, "It's like, what do you want to do in the Marine Corps?" And I answered just like you thought I answered. And I probably said a job or an MOS or something like that. And he's like, "No, you need to think about that. And you need to come back to me." I was like, "Oh, all right." I thought that was the answer. He was a recon Marine. So of course the answer I gave him was, "I want to be infantry." Yeah. Which I did want to be. And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, I want to have an opportunity to change the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
There were so many ideas I had, so many like off the cuff, conversations and stuff. And fast forward, I am here at the United States Naval Academy, where we make 250-ish Marine officers that are going to go and lead Marines, serve them as their platoon commanders and company commanders a couple years later. And I have a hand in that. And so every minute that I get to spend with Cale Krebs, every minute I got to spend with David Key or David Kreidler, I mean, fill in the blank, all the amazing Marine selects that we have chosen here. If they look back and be like, I remember that conversation I had with Major Smith, and it helped them make a decision, better, or maybe I was a great example of not to do. That's also a good thing. I'm literally like those little interactions. Sometimes they're micro, sometimes they're macro. I'm shaping the future of the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it's huge.
And my son, as you know, like he's talked about joining the Marine Corps. He thinks he's coming to the academy. We'll see if he's got what it takes, but ultimately he wants to be a Marine. And whether he goes the officer or the enlisted route, like I did, these young men and women that I am advocating for and saying they're going to be their future leaders.
Yeah.
And so it hits home pretty close.
Yeah, that's real. Austin, like you said, Austin, wants to join the gun club, which is awesome. But
I love it. He got a flyer in the mail the other day from West Point. I threw it away. We didn't even open it.
If only he knew, or if only they knew. But so I definitely haven't asked you this, but why? What? Or maybe I have. Forgive me if I have. But what was it about the Marine Corps that got you into it? You know, I know your background, you know, vaguely, and you always talk about how the Marine Corps kind of was it paved the way to obviously where you are now, and you love it. But why the Marine Corps? Like, how did you get in there?
Yeah, I thought about that earlier, and I think the best way to tell you is, you know, in probably be a couple minutes, is when I was growing up, I had a revolving door of dads, and because of that situation, you know, my mom, there was times where she was a single mom. And during those time periods, I had amazing men from either my community or from my church that were part of the Greatest Generation. And a lot of them were Navy and Army. Some deacons of my church, some neighbors. You know, I'll never forget Captain Jerry Becker, class of 1940 from the Naval Academy. His son was an Army Ranger. In fact, Jerry was a submarine officer in the Pacific in World War II. Like, the stories he would tell were just phenomenal. And so I had a big push towards the Navy because of Captain Becker. And I had a little bit of a draw to the Army because of his son and some other friends. And then when I met my dad, I was in 6th grade. And he was an ET-1. He had just retired. He married my mom. And so Davy Jones, of all the greatest Navy names ever. So my dad, David Jones, being a Navy guy, I went to the Army first. If I'll probably surprise you by that. I spent a few times where I went and I sat down with the Army recruiters. It never felt right. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't put my finger on it. They bought me a bunch of Burger King, which was great. But I never really felt like I had the like, okay, let's do this. Let's commit 4 years. And so I went. After that, I talked with David, and I said, let's go talk to the Navy. And so I talked with the Navy. I wanted to do subs, I think, a lot because of Captain Becker. I wanted to be the down bubble guy. In all the movies, they're like 5-degree down bubble, and he just pushes the thing. And I was like, is that a job?
That's me. That's me.
Turns out that's a crew position. But I was not smart enough to go through nuke power school. But ultimately, neither one. Everywhere I went, it didn't quite feel right. And then I walked into the Marine recruiting office by myself. I was driving somewhere, and I said, I'm just going to do this. And I met Staff Sergeant Hodges, Gary Hodges. That was my recruiter.
Dang, that's awesome. You remember his name.
I do. He had a big influence on me. He never lied to me, which probably set me up for failure because my recruiter did not lie to me. Everything was promised and delivered. And so what Gary Hodges provided for me was an instantaneous example of he was just the quintessential Marine. He was a tanker, right? So he was an M1 Abrams through and through, but he cleaned up really nice. He was wearing his blues. And when I walked in the office and I saw how they were interacting rather with each other, I was like, all right, yeah, this is it. I spent a few times. I went, back and forth a little bit. This was in September of '98. In October, I went and I saw him, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. He never tried to sell me anything. He never tried to convince me of anything. He said, if you want to be a part of us, you got to prove it. And the biggest thing that I also saw that kind of pulled some of my wrestling into the Marine Corps was the family and team feel that I was just completely evident. You've been in your units, you've seen, the majority of the family feel that we have in our units. Yeah. Like I might not like you, but if somebody talks about you from somewhere else, like we're going to battle. Right.
Yeah.
It's like having sisters. And so, that I just really was drawn to the family and the team feel. And I loved everything about, the Marine Corps mission is an integrated mission. We are a general purpose force. We are, we can't do everything forever, but we can come in and we can really punch hard, and we can integrate everything we have on day one. And because of the family and because of the team, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a part of this. So that was my big draw, was that family and that team feel.
So 98 to 2025. Do the math. What do we got?
Well, so I put a disclaimer, somebody out there is going to catch me on it. So I joined the delayed entry program in 98. I shipped to boot camp on August 16th, 1999. I stood on the yellow footprints. So we are
coming up on 26 years.
Coming up on 26.
Hoorah.
Yeah.
26 years.
I was watching Stevie's podcast the other day, and he was like, yeah, I just hit 6. And I was like,
No. Okay, I said that. He graduated in 18. Oh shoot! So yeah, this will be 7
hey,
years.
coming up on 7, which is awesome. And I'm so jealous because he's at his 7-year mark. He's had some great platoon commander time. He got a little NPS master's degree. Come back, give back to the Marine Corps, and go out and hit some staff duties. And I think about that, and I think, wow, how is that 20 years difference? But it is what it is. Besides losing my hair, everything else is still working. So can't complain.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. I mean, but you've honestly been forced to deal with that really your whole career, especially since pinning on lieutenant. Like, you're seeing captains that you've got more experience than since the first day that you put on lieutenant.
Yeah, sometimes. And I think that's the lesson I learned along the way is that, because I know something doesn't mean I'm the best at it. And so I've had some great captains that have been in the Marine Corps, for like right at 4 years. Like you pin on captain at like 4.5, maybe 5 years. I'm the second lieutenant showing up to the unit. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's not quite right. But they know so much more about something else. And so I've never been in a room, I've never been to a brief, and I've never been to a class where I didn't learn something new.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to remember that.
Yeah. No, it's huge.
I've also been in a lot of rooms where they should have known what they were talking about, and I didn't learn anything new. But normally, I'm surrounded by. I always try to surround myself with people who are better, stronger, smarter, faster, because it's only going to make the entire mission better.
For sure.
And I thought I had, I had a lot of leaders that were an influence on me that were both good and bad. Not every person in every organization is the best. Not every, parent you had, not every leader you had is like the perfect example. You just take a little bit of everything and try to make your version of things. And when I spent almost 12 years enlisted, to round up and make it easy math. Some of that was in school, which I had an amazing opportunity to go to school full time and dedicate to education and then get back to the fleet. But, a few leaders I had along the way, I said, I want a piece of that leadership. And I pulled it. And then I had a few others where I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that version of leadership. And so I learned from that. We can all learn from both good and bad. And when I commissioned, my best friend was my first salute. He and I spent a lot of time together in the trenches, legitimately, literally in Iraq. And I was talking to him and I said, I can't believe the path I'm on, because I get an opportunity to go and be the leader that I wished I had, I hoped I had, or the one that I actually had, and I get to take a little piece of every one of them. And so I try to remember that when I'm interacting with my students, with the wrestling team, and I do a little bit with the debate team too, and anything I can give them to make them a better version of themselves makes them better, and their success, like, I get just a small footnote of credit. I need no accolades. I need no name on a plaque. Like, everything is about them.
Yeah.
My one of my favorite commanding officers said, he was like, Smitty, you have to be okay with somebody else's name being on your accomplishments because it's their award. So I mean, you worked for 2 years, 3 years, you got something like almost to finishing, you had to go. and somebody came in and finished it and they got the accolades for it. And you have to be okay with that because it makes the institution better. And when you think about it, you got there 3 years ago, somebody else's accolades were on your award. And I was like, yeah, you're right. He was a great leader. I learned a lot from him. And that was one of the big takeaways I took from him is that, you're going to step in and you're going to be literally made better by people that came before you. And you're going to have an influence on those that are coming after you. And you want to make sure you're a positive influence. And so that's what I tried to do every day with our guys.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, you certainly do. We are just over 42 minutes. Let's
all right, 30 minutes to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could do this all night. This is so much fun. Like, it's crazy how fast the time just goes. Like,
now I got a charger now. Let's rock.
Let's circle back to some of the wrestling. You and I were pacing the floor at EIWA's in Stabler Arena. What's your take from this past weekend, and how does it compare to last year? We'll start with the first thing, I guess. Like, what did you gather from the weekend, and then we'll kind of build from that.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I think that, there's a few areas where the guys wish that they could have done just a little bit more. But I couldn't be more proud of the way that they ended their conference time. 9 guys in the top 7 guys in the top 5, 6 guys in the top 4. Like these are good. These are good numbers. And the team should be proud of the amount of work they put in to stand on the podium, some of them not holding a cup and wishing they had done a little bit more, but I mean, none of them can look back and be disappointed.
Yeah.
I saw 2 guys that, really were disappointed with how they ended their season, but ended it right and ended on top. We always talk about ending on top. Get the last win, get the last takedown. And that's exactly what both of them did.
Yep.
And Nick and Brendan both, I'm very proud of them. They still have more years. I mean, Nick's got 3 more. Brendan's got 1 more to grow and be the best version of themselves. And so I'm very proud of both of them. Lucas, I think, I think it's worthy to talk about, Jake Lucas, who stepped in as heavyweight. He stepped up when we asked him to, and he answered the call when he was, called to the mat. And unfortunately, it didn't end well for him. But shout outs to his hard work and giving it his all. He can't walk away disappointed. We talked that night. I said, "Did you leave anything out there?" He's like, "I crawled off the mat." I was like, "Then you can't be upset. Like you left it all out there."
Yeah.
To shift to the other side, when I watch Josh wrestle, I probably have a weird look on my face because I'm just waiting for him to win. I don't know how he's going to win, but I'm waiting for him to win. And I sometimes I get a little choked up because I'm just so proud of him. The work he has put in for the last 2 years that I've watched him work, I know he's going to be a national champion.
Yeah.
If I could bet, I don't bet because there's probably a rule somewhere around here somewhere. But I just feel so confident that if anybody has put in the amount of work to be a champion, it is Josh Coderant. And so I'm sitting there and I'm back there. I haven't seen any videos of me. I saw like one where we were cheering, but like I'm not nervous. I'm just waiting to see like how's Josh going to win, and that's how I watch every one of his matches. And so watching him be successful for the last 2 EIWAs, a lot of fun. Danny turned it around this year. Danny's EIWA was not what he hoped for last year, and this year he wanted more, but he qualified for the tournament in Philly. And on the drive back, he was saying, I wish I could do things different. I wish I could watch, I don't want to watch that anymore. But it's like, watch it, learn from it, do different. So Cayman Smith, probably one of my favorite guys to watch because he's just such a great guy. Another political science major, so I see him all the time. He turned it out, gets his third. John Lay is an amazing young man. He and I spend a lot of time together, just personally and professionally. I invest a lot of time in him because I see a lot of potential in him. And so there's been times where we're just sitting at a restaurant talking or in my office and we're discussing something. And I have such high hopes for him. Dylan was one of my students. So Dylan Elmore, it's always fun to see like the academic side and the wrestling side, but he's actually a very good student. I know he was hoping for it to be in the champion or in the finals, but he can't be disappointed with his season. Coming back from a broken foot to being right in the mix with some of the top guys, getting some top wins for other guys that got bids that he probably should have. Danny's one of my favorite guys to cheer for and hug and squeeze and also grab a little bit. He has so much potential, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him over the next couple of years. Daniel Williams, very close with his family, and I know he was hoping for a little bit more this year, but he can't be upset with how he finished. And Peyton Thomas heading to the big show. He and I share a lot of similarities from backgrounds, and I'm so excited for where he's headed. So there's a full spectrum.
Yeah, that was a great recap of everybody. I agree wholeheartedly. So actually, Barry brought this up. Everybody minus Danny, but Danny wrestled his ass off in that final match.
He did.
Everybody minus Danny finished above their seed. How can you be upset about that?
Yeah,
everybody placed higher than what they were seeded going into the tournament. And that just makes me so excited about next year. We've got one senior in the starting lineup. Everybody else is coming back.
Yeah.
Minus Josh.
That's a great point.
I pray. I'm excited. I'm already itching for October. Like I'm ready to get back in there and go. That the momentum from this tournament gives the guys that maybe didn't accomplish the goals that they had set out to do. But hey, Dylan, Daniel, John, those guys are in the conversation now. They should have been at the show. They're in the conversation. They should know that they deserve to be there based on their performance at the CIWA tournament.
100%.
They're still young guys. And I could talk all day, all night about how the bids didn't go in favor of the conference and how we just continue to just get screwed on that this year. But, we'll save that for another time. Given the situation, Dylan, John, Cayman, Daniel, those guys did everything right. And they did the best they could with what they had, and they ended odd. They ended third. They ended fifth.
That's right.
They won their last match of the year, and that's the type of momentum and motivation that they need to take them into the off season, take them into the summer, and get ready for next year. And
yeah, I never wanted to end a tournament on the even side. This is a dumb mindset, but I always preferred third over second. Second, I left the arena, the stadium, the basketball gym, whatever it was, disappointed.
Yeah.
And I hated that feeling. I know Danny did this year. I know Peyton did, wishing he could, do that one more time.
Yeah.
Everybody else was odd. Everybody else finished on top, got the last takedown. In some cases, and in a lot of cases, a pin and finish it. So they can't be upset. I'm sure they're disappointed in some respects, but I mean, I'm just proud of this team. To quickly answer your other question, this year and last year are very different. Last year, I watched a big high, like the guys crushed the first half of the season, and then there was a really rough January. January was really rough on a very solid team that Coach Cole had to put together. And then ultimately with a very questionable call in February. Didn't end on a high note for our conference. Then they went to the conference, and we took 5 to Kansas City. So 2 very different seasons. The teams couldn't be more unique. It's not that they're different; they're just unique. They have a different personality. Grady Grease did a great job as team captain, honing guys in and building camaraderie and focus on development. Coder does that in his own way through example and through drive and through leadership. And so no leader is going to be the same. And so both teams have been amazing to be a part of, but 2 very different teams and flavors and pulses. So very hard to compare. That'd be like a whole episode of like comparing Navy 24 versus Navy 25. But some outstanding individuals. And we're going to have, we had 1 All-American last year. Hopefully we have 2 to 3 this year. You only want to give me 3 bids, fine. We'll take 3 All-American spots. I'd love it. I'd love to see it.
Make the most of what we got for sure. That's the way.
All 3 of them have a shot. All 3 of them have a shot. All 3 of them have a shot at the top. And I'm going to sit back just like I do in every match and wonder, how's he going to win?
Yeah, Philadelphia. Coming up March 20th through the 22nd. We will see you there.
Can't wait.
Yeah. But yeah, Major, that's pretty much all I had. But this has been fun. We'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Thanks, Peyton, for having me. Hopefully I answered questions without a roundabout way, but I love these guys. We'll cut it here.
No, it's always good.
Do you edit at the end of this thing? I don't know how it goes.
Usually I go back and edit some stuff, but no, it's as organic as
I think that's what Navy wrestling fans are looking for, is the fact that they can know that we have Kerry Collette, we have Blaze Cabell, we have Ty Eustace, we have Barry freaking Davis, we have Peyton Walsh, we have Quinn Kenner. I mean, how else do we get enough guys in the room that genuinely, and this is what I sit back when the superintendent asks me questions, Don asked me a question the other day, I was like, that room is full of individuals that legitimately care about the midshipmen that are in the room. Yes, they want championships. Yes, they want wins, but they genuinely care about the midshipmen and the midshipman mission of developing mentally, morally, and physically to be future naval officers in the Navy and the Marine Corps. Who else can we put in the room?
Yeah, I mean, man, name a better coaching staff on the yard for sure. Like, I'll wait.
Yeah, I'll wait. Yeah. Don't throw stats at me. Throw engagement, throw dedication, throw investment. That's what's in Lejeune Hall. And that's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
So
it's fun.
It's my pleasure to be a part of it.
Yeah, and we love having you. And yeah, it's been a real joy getting to know you and learn from you. And obviously you and I are going to stay in touch throughout the years, but it's been great having you around, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Peyton. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yep. See you tomorrow, bright and early.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
All right.